You wake up every morning and look in the mirror. But do you recognize the person staring back at you? Or do you see someone wearing a mask, playing a role that society, your family, your job has written for you? Here's an uncomfortable truth. You've been living someone else's life. You've been following someone else's script. You've become who they wanted you to be, not who you truly are. But what if I told you there's a way to strip away all those layers of pretense, all those borrowed identities, and discover the authentic self that's been buried beneath years of conformity? Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher, challenged every assumption about human nature, had a radical prescription for this crisis of authenticity. He believed that your greatest task in life isn't to find happiness, success, or even love. Your greatest task is to become who you really are. This isn't self-help. This isn't positive thinking. This is psychological archaeology, a dangerous journey into the depths of your own mind that could either liberate you or destroy you. Are you ready to discover who you really are? Or will you keep living as an imposter in your own life? Let me ask you something. How many versions of yourself do you perform in a single day? You're one person with your boss, another with your parents, another with your friends. You have your social media self, your professional self, your romantic self. But which one is real? Or are they all just performances? Nietzsche saw this coming over 130 years ago. He watched people around him living what he called common comedy, industriously mindful of their roles, but not at all of themselves. Sound familiar? You see, most of you are afraid. Afraid of what you might find if you dig deeper. Afraid of the chaos within. Afraid of the parts of yourself that don't fit the neat little boxes society has created for you. Nietzsche understood this fear. He wrote, "How can the human being know itself? It is a thing dark and veiled. And if the hair has 7 skins, the human can slough off 70 times 7 and still not be able to say, 'Now that is what you really are. That is no longer outer shell.'" 70 times 7 skins. How many are you wearing right now? But here's what separates you from the crowd. You're here, listening to this, because something inside you refuses to accept this counterfeit existence. Something in you is demanding authenticity, even if it's terrifying. Nietzsche called himself a psychologist without equal because he was willing to do what others wouldn't. He descended into the depths. He wasn't content with surface-level answers or comfortable lies. The question is, are you? Here's what Nietzsche discovered that will shock you. You are not one person. You are a crowd. Right now, inside your mind, there's a whole society of competing voices, drives, and impulses. You have the voice that wants security battling the voice that craves adventure. You have the part that wants to fit in wrestling with the part that wants to rebel. You have ancient instincts clashing with modern conditioning. Nietzsche called this your abundance of contrary drives and impulses. You are, in his words, a kind of chaos. But most people run from this chaos. They want simple answers, clear identities, neat categories. They want to be just this or just that. But you're not simple. You're complex. You're contradictory. You're a battlefield of competing forces. And that's exactly what makes you human. Here's where it gets dangerous. To become who you really are, you have to explore this inner chaos. You have to descend into what Nietzsche called the depths, those parts of yourself you've been taught to ignore, suppress, or be ashamed of. This isn't a journey for everyone. Nietzsche warned that psychological exploration is something not everyone may undertake. Why? Because when you enter the labyrinth of your own mind, you might get lost. You might encounter your own cave minotaur of conscience and be torn to pieces. But if you're courageous enough, if you're gifted enough in psychological investigation, this descent becomes your path to freedom. Think about it. Every hero's journey begins with a descent into darkness. Every transformation requires you to face what you've been avoiding. Every birth requires you to die to who you were. The question isn't whether you have chaos within you. The question is, will you explore it, or will you let it control you from the shadows? Now comes the truly mind-bending part. You are not just yourself. You are also everyone who came before you. Your psyche contains layers upon layers of history. In your deeper levels, you carry the dreams of past cultures, the wisdom of ancient traditions, the struggles of your ancestors. As Nietzsche put it, the past of every form and way of life flows into us modern souls. But you've lost touch with this historical self. You feel disconnected, rootless, like you've been arbitrarily thrown and abandoned into an absurd world. This isn't accidental. It's because you've cut yourself off from your own roots. Here's what you need to understand. You can't know yourself through direct self-observation alone. You need what Nietzsche called a historical sense. You need to trace your psychological DNA back through generations, through cultures, through millennia. And it goes deeper still. In the most ancient layers of your psyche live what Nietzsche called the beast within, primitive drives that stretch back to prehistoric humanity and animality. Your aggression, your sexual desires, your territorial instincts, these aren't flaws to be eliminated. They're part of your inheritance as a human being. Most people are horrified by this idea. They want to believe they're purely civilized, purely rational, purely good. But you're brave enough to face the truth. You are both angel and animal, both civilized and savage, both creator and destroyer. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? You can try to repress these ancient forces, but they'll only grow stronger in the darkness. Or you can learn to channel them, harness them, transform their raw energy into fuel for your authentic self. Nietzsche compared these primal energies to wild torrents of the soul. You could try to dam them up completely, but eventually they'll overflow and flood everything. Or you can build channels, create direction, and use their power to generate the energy you need to become who you really are. Which path will you choose? Here's where Nietzsche's psychology gets revolutionary. Instead of trying to eliminate your contradictions, you need to organize them. Remember, you are a multiplicity, a social structure of drives and effects. You're like a city where numerous competing personalities live simultaneously. The goal isn't to kick anyone out. The goal is to establish order, hierarchy, purpose. This is where your organizing idea comes in, what Nietzsche called your ruling passion or master drive. But here's the crucial part. You don't choose this organizing idea through willpower alone. It chooses you. It reveals itself through your life, your struggles, your passions, your obsessions. You just have to be awake enough to recognize it when it appears. Think about it. What makes you come alive? What would you do even if no one paid you? What problems keep you up at night? What injustices make your blood boil? What beauty moves you to tears? Your organizing idea is growing deep down right now. It's been arranging the circumstances of your life, developing your skills, putting you through experiences that will later prove essential. It's been preparing you for something you can't yet see clearly. Nietzsche used Goethe as his prime example. Goethe didn't become great by accident. He disciplined himself to wholeness. He took all his competing interests, desires, and talents and organized them around a central vision. What he wanted was totality, Nietzsche wrote. He created himself. This is your task too, to become a sculptor of your own soul, to take the raw material of your chaos, your contradictions, your history, your animal nature, your cultural inheritance, and shape it into a coherent, authentic whole. But remember, you're not creating yourself from nothing. You're working with the granite of your nature, the unchangeable core that Nietzsche called your spiritual fate. At the bottom of you, really deep down, there speaks an unchangeable "This is I." Your job is to discover what that "This is I" is, and then have the courage to live it fully. Now comes the hardest part. You have to stop making excuses. You have to stop blaming your parents, your circumstances, your genetics, your trauma. Yes, these things shaped you. Yes, they're part of your story, but they don't determine your ending. You have to stop waiting for permission to be yourself. Society will never give you that permission. Your family might not understand. Your friends might not approve. The world might not be ready for who you really are. But here's what Nietzsche understood that most people don't. Your authentic self isn't meant to be comfortable for others. It's not meant to fit in. It's not meant to make everyone happy. Your authentic self is meant to be a force of nature. Think about every person who has ever made a real difference in the world. Were they comfortable? Were they easy to be around? Did they fit in? Or were they disturbing, challenging, transformative? The path to becoming who you really are requires what Nietzsche called amor fati, love of fate. You must learn to love not just the beautiful parts of your story, but the ugly parts too. Not just your successes, but your failures. Not just your strengths, but your weaknesses. Because everything has been necessary to create the unique individual you're capable of becoming. But here's the warning. This path is not for everyone. It requires tremendous psychological courage. It requires you to stand alone sometimes. It requires you to face the possibility that when you strip away all the masks, you might discover something that frightens even you. Are you ready for that possibility? Or will you choose the safety of the crowd, the comfort of conformity, the familiar misery of living someone else's life? Nietzsche himself faced the ultimate test of his philosophy. At age 44, his mind shattered. Mental illness took him away from the world he had spent his life trying to understand and transform. Some people point to this and say, why should we listen to someone who couldn't save himself? But Nietzsche anticipated this criticism. In one of his final notes, he wrote, "There is a false saying. How can someone who can't save himself save others? Supposing I have the key to your chains, why should your lock and my lock be the same?" His breakdown doesn't invalidate his insights. If anything, it proves his point. The path to authentic self-discovery is dangerous. It's not a game. It's not a lifestyle choice. It's a heroic undertaking that demands everything from you. So here's my final question for you. Will you spend your life as a copy of someone else's idea of who you should be? Will you keep wearing those 70 times 7 skins, playing those roles, living that common comedy? Or will you have the courage to descend into your own depths, face your own chaos, discover your own organizing principle, and become who you really are? The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because every day you delay is another day you're not living as yourself. Remember Nietzsche's command. You shall become the person you are. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready, not when it's convenient. Now.